What's up, glorious, glorified community? Welcome back to another Path to Glory podcast. In this episode, I'm really excited to have a very special guest on. And just before we introduce him, what the topics that we're going to be covering, the overarching topic of this entire discussion is going to be around top email marketing strategies for e-commerce in 2021. So our special guest today is Chase Diamond, is the founder of ChaseDiamond.com and co-founder of Boundless Labs, a top email marketing agency. Since launching Boundless Labs in June 2018, Chase and his team have developed their clients, helped their clients send millions of emails, resulting in over $50 million in email attributable revenue. He and his team currently work with 50 plus brands and have 6 to 8 figures in annual revenue, which is amazing. So Boundless Labs has been featured in Founder Magazine, ABC, CBS, NBC, and Digital Journal. Chase has also created and scaled a product of his own and managed to get 500,000 visitors in 6 months without spending a single traditional advertising dollar. I need to know what was the secret behind that, honestly. And he also generated 1.5 visitors for a dating site within the first 2 months of its launch. Again, without spending a single traditional advertising dollar. So he's definitely the guy you'd want to go to if you want to learn how to get more traffic to your website. I think it's safe to say that. I'm super curious to learn in this episode, in this discussion in this conversation with Chase, to know about what his strategies are too, to be honest. I'm really curious about that. So without further ado, let me welcome Chase Diamond to the Path of Glory. Welcome, Chase. It's great to have you with us here today. Thanks a lot for taking your time out to be with us on the Path of Glory. How's it going, my friend?
I'm doing well, thank you. And thank you for having me. How are you today? Yeah,
really great, man. Can be better, you know? So, yeah, man. So what we like to do in the Path of Glory is, just kind of considering the digital age that we live in, we believe that everyone, whether you're working for a client, whether you're running your own business, or you're a freelancer, you're an agency, serving or building your own business, we're all entrepreneurs in our own right. We're all massive. I think the digital age is pushing people towards being problem solvers. And I'm a big believer in that. And I can see that's what you've done throughout your journey. We love to learn in the Path of Glory what's brought you to where you are now as an entrepreneur. What's your journey? What's the journey behind the entrepreneur to where you are now, basically?
Yeah, absolutely. I kind of got into marketing through a necessity. It's not something that I ever thought I was going to do. I kind of got thrown into it. So what I mean by that is when I was 13 years old, I was diagnosed with what's called Crohn's disease. So Crohn's disease basically is inflammation of your digestive tract. That plus ulcerative colitis is formed under what we call IBD, which is inflammatory bowel disease. And there's about 1 to 2 million people in the United States that are diagnosed with it. So again, it's small as a percentage of the population, but it's still 1 to 2 million people too many. And from 13 to 14 years old, I was sick for an entire year. The reason being there was a lack of awareness of this disease. Doctors, friends, family had no idea what I was going through. So I kept getting misdiagnosis and mistreatments. So I was literally sick for an entire year. Like I was in bed for 14 to 16 days. I was playing 4 sports at the time. I couldn't play any sports. I had to take a lot of time off of school. It just was a really tough time for me. So at the age of 14, when I finally figured out that I had Crohn's and I was starting to get treatment for it, I took it upon myself to raise awareness because at the very least, if you're going to get this disease, you should be able to know what it is to be able to solve for it quickly, right? Absolutely. So from 14 to 16, I taught myself what I call basically guerrilla marketing. And these were basically things like word of mouth, referral marketing, taking out ads in the paper, really getting kind of resourceful with a little budget to make it go a long way, right? Doing fundraisers at restaurants, these types of things. So from 14 to 16, I really dedicated my life towards helping others. And we were able to raise, thousands and tens of thousands of dollars and positively impact, thousands of people's lives in the local community. And at 16 years old, I became the youngest board member of the Crohn's and Colitis Foundation. And I served a 6-year board term. And on that board, that was really kind of, again, so the experience with guerrilla marketing, teaching myself that, plus this board thing was really what shaped and kind of took me in the direction I went. I served on this board with presidents of large banks, with presidents of large healthcare companies, right? And I really got mentors. And the interesting thing was like, these were not things I was doing. It wasn't like I joined the sport to get mentors. Like in hindsight, right? Like I got mentors and just by being there and kind of being likable and whatnot. So that really formed what I did, today. And then in college, I had to help pay for my own tuition. My parents couldn't afford to send me to school. So they were doing it. I was taking out loans. I was paying for my tuition. So that forced me to work a lot of jobs and internships. So in college, I was doing 6, 8, 10 jobs or internships, and whatnot to really just make my way through. And where I went to school, it was a very affluent place. So I was like the poorest kid there, hustling and doing all these things. So it really taught me like grit and, having this purpose and having this kind of self-worth type thing. So that's really kind of how I got into marketing, was through college, through being on the board, and through having this disease that I wanted to better myself and better others.
Wow. So it sounds like a very kind of personal development type of journey where, you've, it seems like you had a lot of battles in the way, and that's made you really resilient and consistent and built all these, core qualities. Would you say that's the case with you, Chase?
Yeah, man. I mean, the stuff that I went through with that, and my parents got divorced when I was younger, right? Like adversity really is the name of the game for me. So I have a lot of confidence in knowing when things arise and when things happen that, hey, I might not know exactly what to do, but I'm going to figure it out, right? I think that's really important, right? Is I don't think I know everything. And that's actually really freeing, right? The fact that I can ask for help and the fact that I'm open to help and I want to surround myself with people that are better than me. I think that's really been the key to success for me.
Yeah, it's very interesting, especially in the time that we live in. I think more and more people need to learn that skill set of learning to let go and ask for help, learn, be motivated. First of all, have self-motivation and be able to grow that as a skill set alone is really, really important today. In 2021, I think, 2020 has just gone down the trash can, but we want to make impact at least in 2021, being set for the potential, prepared for the potential disaster that could come based on our experience on 2020, right? Now, with that, let's get kicked off into some things, just empathizing with the current digital age community or entrepreneur, and more people joining this community, this online community of trying to either get their local businesses online and where they never had a presence before, or perhaps people learning to serve businesses at a higher level in the digital world, using digital as leveraging piece, right? These are the people I'd like to talk to, and it's a growing audience. We see this in Glorify all the time. Like people are very receptive to our messaging and what we're pushing out there, and people see the value in the tools that we provide to create powerful product imagery. And more people are actually new in this game, in this game of digital entrepreneurship and marketing. Now, with that in context, let's kick off some of the potential things that can help, our budding entrepreneurs, especially people who are new to the game. So let's email marketing seems to be, as amongst many things that you've done, some of the, a top game changer in how you've served not just your own business, but other businesses. Can you kind of first, for the layman who hasn't done enough email marketing, what are some of the key factors that they have to consider when it comes to email marketing, even down to the point of just, if you can even explain or describe what email marketing is, would be very helpful before we go into the details.
Yeah. So email marketing, obviously has been around for a long time. And essentially the practice for a business to do email marketing is much in the same that you do, sending emails kind of one-to-one in your personal life or for your business, right? It's just basically doing that same thing, but it's taking automation and tools to be able to apply it for, instead of one-to-one, it's one-to-many. And what I really like about email that's different than other channels is how intimate it is. And what I mean by that is, say, for example, you see an ad on Facebook. You might also see a post from your boyfriend or your girlfriend or your mom or your dad. There's a lot of distractions, right? Someone might be messaging you. There's a lot going on your screen. However, with email, if I can get you to open my email, again, obviously you'll have distractions of your kid yelling in the background or being on a phone call, but it's just me and you, right? Like if you're opening my email and I can get you to do that, I have your attention. Maybe it's only for 2 seconds because I did a really terrible job with the design or the copy, or I could have your attention for 30 seconds, 5 minutes, right? So that's what I personally love about email, is the fact that it's so intimate and the fact that it's one to many, but it feels one to one. So that's really cool. And email is really powerful, right? I think every year you hear email marketing is dead. It certainly is not. This year alone for our clients, so we work with about 50 e-commerce brands. We had done tens of millions of dollars for these brands. And this year in 2021, we'll do even more than that. So it's definitely something going into 2021 that's even more important. I don't want to get too much into it, but if everyone's following like the iOS 14 between Facebook and Apple and that feud, again, that's another reason that points to email. You have to own your audience. You need to control your destiny. Basically with Facebook, Instagram, other platforms, you're renting space, and at any given time, people increase the rent, they take away your space, right? So to me, the importance of email in 2021 is everything.
Yeah, you couldn't have put it better. And, just to go back and reiterate some of the points you mentioned there, just the intimate feeling of the recipient and the sender of an email. It's just, there's nothing else like it, because like you said, in other platforms, the entire experience of those platforms is very much felt like a third-party experience. It feels like you're in a community, and if an ad pops up, it doesn't feel personalized to you, right? It feels like that ad is speaking to or trying to forcefully grab your attention, versus once you receive an email, it feels personal. It feels like there's empathy towards you, and it becomes an asset, right? Like your email list for any business is a massive asset. That you don't have to, it doesn't cost you anything to send a sequence of emails to your audience. And I think that's where the power lies.
So I was on a call yesterday with the CEO of a company, of an ESP, basically an email service provider. And I think he said that they have about, a couple 100,000 merchants actually using their platform. So they have a lot of data. And he had told me, based off the data that they have in 2019, the average email was worth $16. And that's not to say every person spent $16, but that's basically saying across the entire list, if you average the amount of revenue dividing it by the total list, that each email is worth $16 in 2019. In 2020, for whatever reason, whether it was the pandemic, whether it was, this, that, or the other, an email actually was worth almost double. It was worth, like $31, he said. So last year in 2020, an email was worth $31 on average.
So the value of it, the value per email is growing as we move into 2021. That's amazing, and it makes sense because everyone's going online, right? So and so that totally adds up. What was interesting is that you mentioned, as we go into 2021, email marketing is a very important strategy that I think any business should consider. So with that in mind, what are some of the top email marketing strategies that you think entrepreneurs should know about for the upcoming year?
Yeah. So again, the lens that I look through right now is I'm very predominantly focused on e-commerce. So a lot of this is going to be applicable to e-commerce, and some of it will be applicable to info, SaaS, B2B. But there's a couple of things that you have to think about, right? One is you have to be thinking about how do you collect traffic into an email, right? And the way that you do that is through forms. You have three different types of forms. You have a pop-up, right? That's something that just pops up on your screen. It either takes over the whole screen or a decent part of it right in the middle. You have a flyout, which is a little bit less obtrusive. It kind of literally just flies out from the left or the right of the screen. It's a lot smaller. And then you also have what's called an embedded subscription form. And that basically is typically at the bottom of your website, says, enter your email, it stays there, it doesn't move, and whatnot. Or you can have that within a blog post, right? So those are the three mechanisms for which you collect emails. And on the interview I did with the CEO of this big company yesterday, he actually put it in an interesting way, and he kind of gave me some stats. So for these pop-ups, there's three different ways that you look at a pop-up. One is simply, hey, sign up for our website, get access to new product launches, et cetera. So these types of signups that have no incentive or no kind of offer, they're typically converting at like 1% is what he said. The next is one that has an offer, right? The most popular offer is typically about 10% off. And those typically convert at about 5 to 10%. So for every 100 people that come to your website, if you have an offer of 10%, you should expect and see it anywhere from about 5 to 10%. But again, obviously you have to test, you have to optimize, you have to try these things. And then the third is enter to win. So any kind of like giveaway, right? So enter to win an iPhone or whatever it is that you sell, that should be what you're giving away, right? You want to have congruency between, what people are opting in to receive and what you actually deliver on, or else there's going to be a mismatch. And he was saying that typically converts as high as up to the low teens, right? So 10, 12, 14%. So those are the ways that you kind of collect emails, right? So that's how you build your list. The other ways that you get people on your email list is if someone enters their email at checkout, whether they purchase or not, as long as they enter like their name, their phone number, their email address, and click next, that's how you collect emails. Yeah. So, collecting the emails is step one, right?
Yeah.
Step two then is serving them relevant content. So once you have someone's email, if someone gives you an email, let's say in one of the forms, right? So the pop-up, the flyout, or the embedded subscription, you're then going to want to serve them welcome content, right? So typically you want to send them 3 or 4 emails over the course of about a week and a half that educates them and nurtures them about your brand, right? And in the first email, you want to make sure that you deliver on whatever the value proposition was that you promised in the form, right? Enter your email for 10% off. Then you have to say, hey, so-and-so, here's 10% off code, use it at checkout. By the way, we're so-and-so brand. We make the best and highest quality product X, Y, and Z. We've been around for 4 years. We've got, thousands and tens of thousands of raving fans, like whatever it is, right? So the whole goal is to deliver on the value proposition, say, welcome to the family, welcome to the community. Thanks so much for having you, here type of thing. And in this welcome series, if at any point someone converts, you want to pause them in the welcome flow and you want to push them to the post-purchase, right? So someone has made a purchase from you now, right? From this welcome series, you want to speak to them a little bit differently, right? You want to switch to be like, hey, thank you so much for your purchase. It means so much to us. We're working on packaging your order up. You can expect to receive it, in X number of days. And while you wait, X, Y, and Z, right? Here's some content on how to use the product. Join our Facebook group so you can learn more about our community, right? So it's really important to thank a customer for their purchase. That reduces buyer's remorse. That will set up you asking for a customer review, right? That will increase the social proof of your brand and your business. You could use the testimonial on your website. You can use the testimonial in emails. You can use the testimonial on Facebook for ads, right? Like there's so many different mechanisms of which you can leverage social proof. So those are kind of ways that you leverage the emails that you get, right? You also want to have emails for people that abandon different things, right? So if someone adds something to their cart, but they don't start checkout, you want to serve them an abandoned cart flow, right? Hey, so-and-so, you left this behind. We think this would go really great with, whatever it is that you've got going on. Here are the reviews on this product. Make sure you purchase this, right? Or if someone makes it one step further to the checkout, right? And they don't buy, it's like, hey, you were so close. Here's free shipping on your order. Oh, here's 10% off, right? Basically, we want to kind of push them along and kind of push them over the edge of consideration into conversion, right? The reason that people typically leave checkout and abandon it and don't purchase is a couple of things. One, you didn't have free shipping, right? That's a huge barrier. 2, they got distracted, right? They were doing something, they got called into something else, right? They were distracted. The third is a lot of these customers and consumers have been trained to wait for your email to see if there's going to be any incentive, right? Et cetera. So those are some of the ways that you kind of serve people content as you get their email.
That's awesome, man. I mean, you pretty much went full circle and hit, well, not full circle, but you hit very holistically all the types of email sequences that any digital business should know about, So just to reiterate, nurturing sequence, abandoned cart, your post-purchase sequence. So there's 3 there. Was there anything else that I'm missing in that list?
Yeah, no, those were the main ones, right? Those are the ones that you should do first because those are the core. And then there's obviously within each of those, right, there's different ones that you could add. So there's actually, most people don't know this, but there's 4 abandoned flows. One is site abandonment. The other is browse abandonment. The next one's abandoned cart. And then the last one's abandoned checkout. And at each step in the funnel, right, if people don't make it to the next step, you want to serve them with the content that's relevant to them, right? So those are all on what we call the pre-purchase side. The welcome series for non-buyers is also pre-purchase. Back in stock is pre-purchase. The post-purchase is things like the customer thank you, which we talked about. Right. Upsells and cross-sells. Customer win-backs, breakup series, right? So there's tons of different flows. There's like dozens of these flows, and each of these flows And basically a flow means an email automation. So
Of course.
there's three different types of emails. There's an email campaign. A campaign is a one-time send to a group of contacts. Think a holiday launch or a product launch or some kind of special sales offer. Then from there, there's email automations or kind of flows, which I call them. And those are basically emails that are triggered based off an action or a behavior that someone takes. Abandons
Your
cart.
platform.
Exactly. And then the last one is what's called a transactional email. And those are emails like order confirmation, shipping confirmation, etc.
Yeah, makes total sense. I'd love to zoom in into some of those flows just to understand more holistically, what the flows can look like and how to optimize it more than anything, because I think a lot of people struggle with, the individually those flows, and I'm not sure in terms of content, what to include in the sequence. Now, I know personally, I've had a lot of struggle with this, and I've done a lot of research, and there's so much experimenting online on how you do your nurturing sequence, for instance. Currently at present, Glorify's nurturing sequence is very value upfront and kind of onboarding the customer on our product, but mainly teaching them some unique skills and insights on the importance of product imagery and how to present them. Now, could you give us some understanding on insight into what's a good, well-structured nurturing flow, and how frequent should those emails be? Because we've scaled up and scaled down, man. Honestly, we've done 7 email sequence, day to day, and then we scaled down to 4 a day. So I'm sorry, not 4 a day. One every day for 4 days. There's so many different varieties of it, and what's the best way of doing it without feeling too spammy?
Yeah, so typically, like in a welcome series or a nurture series, we'll send 4 emails, right? So the first email, again, is like a welcome, a brand introduction, a thank you, applying a discount code if applicable, right? And that typically will get sent as soon as someone subscribes, to your list. Hey, welcome, more info inside, or welcome to Chase Diamond. You're now part of the family, or great, you're in. So that's the first email. And again, if someone converts on this email, you'll move them to the post purchase. If they don't convert, you'll send them a second welcome email. And here you'll talk about the brand story, any kind of unique quality standards, and any kind of benefits of shopping with your company, right? So this could be a subject line of like, you heard it here first. Here's our story. Level up your game with whatever it is. Learn more about us. And this will typically go out 1 to 2 days after email 1 is sent. You'll want to test kind of the time delay to see which is optimal, but I would test, 1 to 2 days later. Is that making sense so far? I'll kind of go to the next 2.
No, absolutely. I think the 1 or 2 days makes sense. You don't want to overburden them with tons of emails, but I guess the first one is like what you said, an introductory email about the company, personalized to them, of course. And I guess as far as personalization goes, it's just, hey, first name, and pretty much it. That's as far as it goes, right?
Yeah, and it depends. So some stuff that we do in the email platform that we use is, so say, for example, a company sells apparel, and say they have like an endless number of categories for apparel, whether it's animals or fishing t-shirts or drinking t-shirts or funny t-shirts. What we'll basically do is we'll showcase the top 6 or 9 categories, and we'll actually track each of the buttons and the images to see which people click. And depending on either the one that they click or the few that they click, we'll start tagging their profile with, Chase is interested in funny t-shirts, or Chase is interested in, animal t-shirts. And then in either subsequent welcome emails or in campaigns or a completely different flow, we'll start sending those people specific products from the categories that they've selected, right? And they don't even actually know that they're giving us the info to start personalizing the content. But in the beginning, right, when you don't really know too much about them, you have to give them, kind of this general blanket. And then as people click and they show interest and intent, you then can start serving them more relevant content.
Yeah. Okay. That's awesome. Yeah, I totally get that. I can imagine the personalization behind that can only lead to more conversions, right? Just before we move on to the next topic, this is just out of my own curiosity, but those type of, we're familiar with different segmentation options that we can use. Softwares allow you to segment your email sequences quite nicely based on behavior. But for those starting out, it sounds, it's a little bit, it's a bit of complex working with user segments, if you will. As far as the setup of that goes, what would you advise for new people who are slightly newer to this type of stuff?
Yeah. So the most, I think, important segment out the gates is just someone that's engaged, right? So, and let me talk about, so for example, you have, let's keep the numbers easy, right? Let's say you have a list of size of 100 people, just to keep the math easy. Of those 100 people, there's going to be X percent that have purchased, right? Maybe 10% of the 100 people have purchased, right? So you have 10 buyers out of 100 total people on your list. You're going to have, let's say, 40% of those people have opened some of your emails in the past, 1 month, 2 months, 3 months, right? So these are people that are engaged. And then, so you have 10 buyers, you've got 40 other people that have opened your emails. So say about half your list is pretty good. The other half of your list might be completely useless, where they've either never purchased, they never opened your emails, they never clicked your emails. So instead of sending to all 100 people, you want to focus on that bucket of people that really do want to hear from you. And I think that's been the biggest change in what I've seen since I started an email about 5 or 6 years ago, is back then you could just batch and blast your whole list. It didn't really matter. You would do just fine. But today the ISPs, so Google, Yahoo, AOL, Hotmail, etc., they really reward people that are focused on sending and segmenting their list to the people that are engaged. That will allow you to hit the inbox, or at the very least the promotions, instead of being in the spam folder. So that's really crucial and important. And I would focus on a 30-day, on a 60-day, on a 90-day engaged as a starting point. And that's basically saying that someone has clicked or opened your email in the last X number of days or X number of months. And that's quite easy to do within ESPs, as long as you know what you're looking for. Yeah. And then from there, right, as you get more sophisticated, you could do someone is engaged and they live on the West Coast of the United States. And if they're on the West Coast and I sell apparel, I pretty much could send flip-flops and sandals and t-shirts year round. Or on the East Coast, where there's more seasons, right? The weather, fluctuates a lot more than where it does where I'm in California. You'll want to send people in the winter, obviously, things like big jackets and pants and hoodies and beanies, right? So you can start segmenting based off the geography of people. In certain platforms, you could even figure out whether someone's male versus female, right? And then you'll want to start sending content that's more relevant to men, to the guys that on your list, and you want to send content that's more relevant to the females on your list, right? Things like that. So you could really go anywhere from being pretty broad with just an engaged segment to very even granular of someone has bought product A, and we know that product B is perfect for people that bought product A. So we're going to send them kind of an upsell, cross-sell, and a special offer, right? So there are so many different things that you could leverage with segmentation. And before I forget, I do want to finish out on the welcome series. There's 2 more emails that are really important.
Yeah, go for it.
So the third welcome email, the content buckets that you should focus on. This is all about social proof and popular products. So social proof comes in the forms of customer reviews, press mentions, celebrity or brand endorsements, retail footprint. So I'm in 100 stores, I'm in 1,000 stores, right? And then kind of showcasing popular products. People want to know what other people have purchased and enjoyed from your store. And some subject lines here, our customers say it best, word on the street, have you treated yourself lately, etc.
You're flexing your muscle, basically.
Exactly. And this will go 2 to 3 days after email 2. So again, you have the first email that's about welcome and greeting people. You've got the second email that talks more about the brand story, anything that's unique about you guys, any of the benefits, right? It's basically, instead of like, the brand is asking the customer, what's in it for you? This is basically telling them, right? This is what's in it for you. Right. This is why you should buy from us versus our competitors. And then lastly, the fourth email, if you haven't got someone to convert, you want to get them into the community instead. Yes, they're on your newsletter, but focus on the community element. And there's a few ways that you could do this. One is, join our Facebook group. The other is, hey, we're doing an AMA with our founders. Ask us anything, right? Respond to this email. Just something that gets them to take that next step of that commitment. So that way it makes it a little bit stickier. And the kind of subject lines here are, let's get social, let's be friends, meet our team, we're all in this together. So that's kind of the welcome series or the nurture series, at least as it applies traditionally to kind of physical products, e-commerce, direct-to-consumer brands.
Yeah, I find it quite interesting. I mean, a lot of this can be very much translated into SaaS or info products. I've seen very similar sequences, to be in all honesty. Just the structure of it, the overarching structure makes total sense. You spoke about very kind of important things when it comes to deliverability. And this is something I think everyone is facing, like suffering from, marketeers, as soon as, things have gotten more tighter in terms of how we're supposed to do from a good place, of course, how we're supposed to do email marketing. We can't no longer blast the email lists like it's like they owe you money, right? So, you know, you mentioned segmentation, and I appreciate that because you mentioned what's a great stepping stone towards segmentation. And as you said, I guess the first way to look at segmentation is the engagement, the level of engagement. Have they bought or have they not bought? I think it's a very simple way of understanding the engagement level and the timeline of that engagement. You know, how often and over what period have they purchased, and then you can segment your list like so. Now, when it comes to those cold leads who, despite opting in somehow, yet they have not engaged past opting in, how do we re-engage them?
Yeah, so there's a couple ways, and
without feeling spammy again, and without ruining your deliverability.
Yeah, so it depends, right? So traditionally, with most of our clients, right, we'll have what we call a breakup series, and that's when the point of people have been like, they're kind of towing the line between almost like dying from your list, right? Like have not been engaged, right? So they've been very unengaged. And if we send them these emails and they still don't respond or they don't open and they click, like they're dead to us, right? So that's one way to do it, is through a breakup series. So if, say, you've had someone on your list for 90 days, they've not opened, they've not clicked, they've not purchased, we'll basically send them like one or two last ditch attempts to try to win them back and try to get them to be active and engaged. And if they aren't, then they aren't, right? We'd rather just go suppress their profiles. That will save us money in our ESP, and that will keep our account healthy. Outside of that, right, if you have a really important message to send,
just to pause you there, you mean like remove them entirely off your email list?
Correct. Yeah. So for example, like if someone has been on your list for 3 months and they haven't opened a single email, and you've sent them 10, 15, 20 emails, the likelihood of them ever opening an email is very slim. There is a caveat to that. So there are certain shoppers that will only ever revive themselves from a list around Black Friday, Cyber Monday. So you might want to run a follow-up segment to that, basically saying, these people have been dead, and have they ever purchased during Black Friday, Cyber Monday? If yes, maybe just store them on the special list and don't ever email it until Black Friday, Cyber Monday. If they've never bought during Black Friday, Cyber Monday, and they've been completely useless, just get rid of them. Like they're wasting space on your list. They're really not worth it.
Right. That's really interesting, because I think most businesses suffer from, having a massive leads pool, right? And, you can be kind of deceived to think that, hey, look, this is a massive asset that I hold. And at any point I can run a campaign, be it on Black Friday even, and, probably with utmost hope, probably expect like a 10% or 20% conversion, but it's just never the case. Right. And so I'm glad that you kind of gave us some insight into that. Just to go back into re-engagement of cold leads again, because typically what we do is, our leads kind of pull is and I can only imagine it's just more harder in e-com, because in e-com it's a one-off purchase, right? So it's harder to measure engagement on e-com because you're relying on them purchasing something versus, on software, they start a free trial, etc. I guess so on that basis, you only look at the open rate, right? That's your only measurable kind of level of seeing how engaged a user is or a customer.
Yeah, there's positive and negative engagements, right? So positive engagements that we could track are things like the open rate, things like the click through, maybe even things like someone has forwarded, right? So those are kind of like the positive engagements. The negative ones are things like bounced, marked as spam, unsubscribed, right? So in terms of what we actually can control, what we actually can leverage, it's basically someone has opened an email, someone's clicked an email, someone's forwarded an email, someone's been active on your website, because we have tracking, right? So we know if someone's come back to the website, whether or not they've actually purchased.
Yeah.
So yeah, or that too, right? So whether they've opened the email or not, we can see whether their profile is active on the site. Maybe they just came back because they were thinking about us, or saw, an ad, right, etc. We know what items that they've viewed. We know what items they've added to their cart, if they've taken these steps. So other than opens, those are some of the things that we can see.
Yeah. And just to go down the sort of the negative metrics that you mentioned on around email, what do we have to be monitoring there to make sure that we keep the bounce rates, all those, should we make a kind of a strict a culture around making sure that they're as low as possible? So bounce rates, and the unsubscribe, etc.
Yeah. So with the bounce rate, right? there's certain things that you could do to hopefully prevent bounces. One is, if you have a really old list, one is cleaning it, right? You run it through this verification software. The software will tell you whether someone has passed, failed, or they're unsure, right? You'll want to take the leads that have passed, the ones that have failed or unsure. Could be emails that people had on AOL and they switched to Gmail so they don't use it. It could be spam traps. It could be a whole host of things, right? So you want to clean your list through some of these verification tools before you send to them. If you have not been engaging these people, sometimes if you have like the whole spin to win wheel, people are just entering, any email, right? And they're kind of just typing in quickly. They might type it in wrong, or they might type in a fake email.
Yeah.
Sometimes if you're running Facebook lead ads and you don't make people manually enter their email, it will automatically populate their email from 7 years ago from college, right? So there's all these things that you can hopefully try to do to prevent bounces. That's one. On the unsubscribe thing, right? Like it's really important to clarify to people how frequently you're going to send before they sign up. If you don't say I'm going to be sending every single day, most people are going to be assuming that you're sending maybe once or twice or 3 times a week at most. And if you start sending every single day, there's going to be a mismatch in kind of what the expectation was. So people are going to want to unsubscribe. That's one. Two, if your content is really bad, it's slow to load, if it's just, really poor, people are going to unsubscribe, right? If you promise discounts and offers and you don't ever send discount or offers, people are going to unsubscribe, right? So there's all these different types of things. And then mark as spam. Like if you are trying to be sneaky and you try to hide the unsubscribe link, people are just going to mark as spam, right? If you're sending emails to people that did not actually opt in, you're doing cold email along with, your opt-in email, people are going to mark as spam, right? So those are some of the things that you have to be wary of, because it bounces. Elevated marked as spam, elevated unsubscribes are flags to your email provider that maybe you're not as legit as you kind of have said you are.
Yeah. I understand that. I think that's like the fear of most digital business today is to, start to move their email deliverability down the red zone. And so you mentioned a lot of metrics that can cause that. And can you just explain to us, like, what are the damages that could cause if you're, with that, and how can you prevent it if, say, your email deliverability starts to suck, right? Based on the way you've the way you've behaved with email, right? How can you revive it if there's any other tactics, or would you have to completely start fresh?
Yeah, the best thing to do to prevent it, and also the best thing to do if you have it, is to focus on sending to people that are engaged, right? If you send to people that are engaged, most times you're not going to end up with these issues. The people that are opening and clicking your emails, they're going to be the ones that are want to hear from you. They're going to be the ones opening your email. They're going to be the ones that are signaling to the ISPs and the ESPs that you are a reputable sender, right? The only way that ISPs and ESPs know whether your emails are good or not is if people respond to them in a positive way, right? So by sending to people that are engaged, that will help you stay out of spam. And then once you're in spam, you really have to get even stricter and tighten up the funnel of who you're sending to. You'll probably want to pause automations that have really low open rates, right? So the benchmark on a campaign is you're going to want to hit a 20% open rate or higher. Your automations or your flows should be 30, 40, 50% even higher, right? So if you have any automations, let's say like the breakup series, that inherently is going to have 3%, 5%, 7% open rates. If you've gotten into trouble and you have deliverability issues, that's going to be the first flow that you're going to want to pause. If you're sending, to too large of a list and, you're not sending people that are engaged, you're going to really want to cut it down for a while and be really meticulous about who you're sending it to.
Right. Okay. That's really interesting. I think a lot of this stuff we need to implement ourselves. So I really appreciate you sharing this with us, and yeah, just to move forward, we're coming towards the end of the session, man. And you've really, really given a lot of value in terms of, the top email marketing strategies that we can utilize in 2021. Now, just a quick fire, if we can, what are the most common mistakes of email marketing? That's the first one.
Yeah. The quickest and easiest way to get into spam is going against everything I told you on the segmentation side. By batching and blasting your list and sending it to everyone, that is the quickest way to shoot yourself in the foot. You have to leverage segmentation.
Yeah. But what you did mention when it comes to segmentation and trying to prevent you getting in the red zone, all this stuff is fixable by, starting to just put in some healthy practices, right? As you mentioned previously. So that's great. It's good to know that you can still save yourself from these kind of poor practices that you've implemented in your email strategy. What are the best and worst times to send out emails?
Best and worst times. So it depends on, where you're based. It depends on the spread of your customers, right? So, we work with a lot of companies in the States. We also work with a lot of companies in Europe. If people are just in the States, right, you're going to want to optimize for times in the States, right? If you're sending for people across the US and, Europe, you're going to want to maybe send in people's respective times. So in one of the tools that we use, I could send 8 a.m. in everyone's respective time zone. So it doesn't matter where you are in the world, you get it at 8 a.m. So it just depends. Like I'd say a couple of days and times, like I think it was like the middle of the week typically is pretty good, right? Like Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday is typically when people are engaged. Sending, in the morning, 7, 8 a.m., sending after work, 5 p.m. or 6 p.m. is pretty good. But again, like you have to test it. And there's a tool that we use, the platform that we use is called Klaviyo. It's an e-commerce email marketing platform. They have something where they do this, what's called like an exploratory or kind of a smart send, where they're going to basically take your list and what they know about them, and they're going to try to send it to them at the time that they've opened emails in the past. And you'll be able to see, 3 a.m., 6 a.m., 9 a.m., noon, 3 p.m., right? You'll be able to see all the times and the respective open rates and click-throughs, right? So we are always testing because every single client we work with has a slightly different day and time that is the best. I think a lot of people shy away from sending weekend emails. Again, maybe your open rates might not be as high, but I think you're leaving money on the table if you're not sending on the weekend, which is something that most people don't think about or don't like to do.
Yeah, I think it's fair to say that a lot of people like to chill back and browse through scroll through their email feed. I catch myself looking at the more promotional stuff on the weekend versus the weekday. I don't bog myself with promotions during the work week, So jumping back into these questions, how important are email headers and visuals in email marketing?
Email headers as an email subject line, or actually a header within an email of content?
Yeah, so visual design when it comes to email marketing. So like banners and imagery and stuff like that.
So I think it depends on the brand, right? If a brand has a beautiful website and if their ads are really well polished and their emails are mediocre, then there's a mismatch, right? That's really difficult. However, you have to have congruency and consistency across channels. So if your website is really stellar and your social is really stellar and everything else is really stellar, having emails that look and match that feel is crucial. However, if your website's, decent and, your social's decent, you could get away with having emails that are also decent. And I think it's really important to go back and forth between really nice kind of visual emails as well as plain text emails, right? So say you're really conscious about your brand and you'd rather focus on brand than conversion. Again, I think there's a way to do both. It's not a, an or type thing. I think it's an and situation. I would focus on, 2 or 3 branded emails and then a plain text email, just to kind of keep people, guessing, just to see how things inbox and how things deliver, and kind of just fight the fatigue. I think a lot of times, like branded emails that look the same every single time, they're really cool and that's really great, but they allow people to have email fatigue, right? So it's important to kind of throw things in there.
Yeah, that makes they become, I guess, immune to that that look and aesthetic versus seeing something different every time, and that makes total sense actually. So last 2 questions. Okay, so this one is a bit I think broader, but copywriting tips for emails. If there's maybe the top 3, if you can, top 1 even is fine.
Again, like I hate to say that, but it depends on the email, right? Like, what is the goal of the email, right? Like, are you trying to educate people? Are you trying to sell people? Are you trying to get someone to take a specific action, right? Like it depends on the goal, and that dictates the length, the language, and whatnot. So for example, if it's an education email, right? Like it literally could either be education throughout the email and it could be a really long email, or it could be something of like, hey, we have this blog post. Here's what you're going to learn. Click here to learn more, right? Like it could be super simple. If it's a sales email, right? Like you want to be more persuasive. You want to leverage, testimonials, reviews, value propositions, right? So I really think depending on the goal, the copy will, kind of follow.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's quite broad, that question, in all fairness, but and I appreciate the insight into that. The last question for you, Chase, is, we just passed Black Friday, and I think it's good for any business, even though it's just early in 2021, to prepare for the next Black Friday next year. In 11 months or 10 months. How many emails should a marketing campaign for Black Friday have, and how frequent, or what should the intervals be around those campaigns in your experience?
Yeah, so for us this year, we went from Tuesday to Tuesday. So Black Friday, right, is typically on the Friday. We started on that Tuesday before Black Friday. So 2 days before Thanksgiving, 3 days before Black Friday. So we went one email every single day from Tuesday through, I think Tuesday was the 24th this year, right? It was of 2020 was 11/24. So November 24th through December 2nd, we sent one email every single day.
Right. And that's interesting. I mean, but would you, just to expand on that, would you say, open your deals early? I'm sure you work with lots of clients of different brands and your own business, but, what are the differences? Like, open the Black Friday deal a week or 2 weeks early, or do we, aim for scarcity up until the day of, or a certain day, or on the day of Black Friday and leading to Cyber Monday? What's your experience around that? What do you recommend?
Yeah. So we typically start on that Tuesday with hey, keep an eye on your inbox tomorrow. Something big is coming, right? So we kind of like a hype email, right? And then, hey, sale starts early. Hey, happy Thanksgiving. Hey, Black Friday is here. Black Friday reminder. Black Friday last chance. Cyber Monday is here. Cyber Monday last chance. That's really the cadence, right? It's like, something big is coming. Hey, shop early. Happy Thanksgiving. We're here. Reminder that we're here. Last chance that we're here. Moving to Cyber Monday extended, last chance, right? That's typically how we roll with it.
And in your last chances on both Black Friday and Cyber Monday, is there a few emails or just one on the day?
Typically one on the day. If we want to really get aggressive, we'll send the one on the day in the morning, and then one on a follow-up, like last chance, 3 hours left, something like that.
Right. Awesome, man. Thanks a lot, Chase. I mean, it's been truly valuable having you on the podcast. I think our audience is going to be really psyched to hear all these tips to take forwards in 2021. I think you're really noble in sharing all that information, because it's really high level. So thanks a lot again, Chase. I wish you the best in all of your business endeavors, and I'll catch up with you soon.
Awesome, man. Cheers. Thank you.
Take care, Chase. There you have it, glorified community. I think there's a wealth of value for you guys to jump into here. Make sure you share, make sure you subscribe if you haven't subscribed, and stay glorious. Take care.